British Peace Assembly brings everyone gathered here greetings of solidarity and peace. We thank the Belgrade Forum for a World of Equals and all those involved for organising this most significant conference under the title, Lest We Forget, and for bringing us the possibility of saying the words of a peace organisation from the heart of an aggressor country here in Belgrade. We pay our respects to the many thousands murdered during and as a result of the 28-day bombing, to their families and to all the people of Serbia. We particularly think of the 89 youngest victims whose lives and potential were so prematurely cut off. Their poignant memorial stands in Tajmaidan Park here in Belgrade, bearing 4 simple words: we were only children. We recall with horror the orchestrated terror and devastation inflicted purposefully and mercilessly on the people of Serbia by the US and its allies, including by the right-wing Labour government of Britain under Tony Blair and the neoliberal establishment in our country in whose interests it acted. We remember the enduring legacy, a country divided, shattered lives and communities, an economy, infrastructure and environment destroyed, and the reduction of so many to enduring poverty and deprivation. And we say, shame on you, NATO, killers. We remember, but we have a duty and responsibility also to revisit and re-examine what took place and its significance, not only for the people of Yugoslavia, but for all peace-loving people everywhere in their ongoing struggle against imperialist aggression and war. After the Cold War, US imperialism hatched new strategic plans dependent on NATO to block the advance of socialism and maintain its hegemony across the globe. But it needed a credible covering narrative now that its lie of a threat to the West from the Soviet Union and socialist world no longer provided a viable means of convincing public opinion for its interventions and conflicts. It had to find, in a new era, different ways of operating, more efficient methods of waging war, and new strategies for exploiting resources, labour and markets for what it envisioned as an exclusively neoliberal universe. In tiny Yugoslavia, imperialism saw not only the opportunity of ridding Europe of any last vestiges of socialism, splitting the country into controllable and exploitable statelets, and securing strategic positions for NATO and access to quantities of mineral resources, but also of conducting a most deadly experiment. This was the largest military operation and fine-tuned cooperative effort of allies ever undertaken, and it saw many terrible firsts of warfare that revealed the true face and intent of the most reactionary powers on the planet. For the first time, force was used against a sovereign state without UN approval in violation of international law. The new imperialist approach to combat was tried out. No boots on the ground, sole reliance on air power and the most advanced technology and deadly weaponry, including first use of large-scale satellite technology in the conflict for missile guiding, made its missile guiding debut. In Yugoslavia, there was no discernible threat to the national security of any NATO member country. Yet public opinion in the West was won on the basis of a sophisticated and highly effective web of lies. The day before the first bomb fell, Prime Minister Tony Blair told Parliament in Britain that Britain was ready to take military action, quote, primarily to avert what would otherwise be a humanitarian disaster in Kosovo. The real objective of weakening the Yugoslavian army and so increasing its costs that it would be forced out of its province altogether was as attested in the British Parliament's papers from the time, never featured. The aggression was long planned, and nothing that the Serbian government did or did not do could have changed what NATO intended and what NATO brought about. In Britain, due to deceptive news coverage, few people were aware or have since become aware of what truly took place. They have little idea of the sheer scale of death, injury and destruction which so many speakers have already related. They do not know that civilian targets and places where it was known that civilians would be casualties were deliberately attacked by our government, by our forces, and that subsequent rescue attempts and medical teams attending the injured were subjected to secondary terror bombing. There was no exposure of NATO war crimes and carnage, and calls for peace, justice and reparation were ignored. For NATO, the aggression was a success by any measure. For the military-industrial complexes of the West, it was a vindication of investment, with the promise of trillions in profit to be had from coming wars and threats of war. But for the people of the world, it was a tragic precursor of the whole new order of imperialist aggression. Britain played a full and significant part, mobilizing support for military action from mid-1997 and in detailed planning from then on in. From the outset, B-52 bombers left English bases, HMS Invincible operated Sea Harrier jets, and an array of British destroyers, frigates and warplanes gave support throughout. British-made weapons, including cluster bombs, rained down on the innocent people. The British Peace Assembly and the wider peace movement in Britain must use this anniversary to ensure that the people of Britain understand what was fully what was done in their name, and will be repeated time and again unless we are strong, united and vigilant. It is the role of the peace-loving people in every country to expose imperialism and NATO for everything they have been, are and plan to be. We must never forget, but we cannot forget what we were forbidden to learn in the first place. It is our duty to bring the past and its significance alive to a new generation of those in struggle. We must ensure that when we say never again, we understand where the roots of aggression lie and are thus better able to struggle against the forces of imperialism and together for peace, democracy and progress. While imperialism continues, there can be no world of equals.